Hi, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to do a follow along tutorial of a Winter Wonderland landscape. So go ahead and grab your chalk, grab an easel, and let's get started. Alright, so let's get started. I've gone ahead and I've taped a 1-inch border around our paper, and then I taped it onto a board because we're going to want to work upright for this project. The paper is 400 grade Uart Sanded pastel paper in black. I'll also list all of the materials we're going to use today in the description below. I have a really basic set of hard pastels. I think this is Artist Loft. I'm pretty sure I picked it up at Michael's. And truly, you can use any kind of pastels for this, soft, hard. I'm just using hard because they're the most affordable, and on the right paper, they'll look great. Then I have a chalk pencil in white, a charcoal pencil, a wet paper towel, my reference image, and last but not least is this glorious bottle right here. And this is actually my spray fixative in a smaller bottle. Fixative is used to keep the chalk on our surface, and we can keep working over the areas that we want to keep by using spray fixative. This is non-toxic, which is fantastic. It's not aerosol, so I can use it in my studio, and that's why I like it a whole lot. It also fixes a whole bunch of other things besides pastels, but I do like it in the small bottle. So with that, let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is I am going to look at my reference picture, which will be listed in the description, and I'm going to just roughly sketch out the tops of my mountains, where the snow is, this top part of our river, and the bottom part of our river. This is just going to give me a guide. And I don't necessarily like to be totally picture perfect with this, so it is just going to be a relatively quick sketch process for me. When I work in other painting mediums, I actually don't hardly sketch at all, but for these guys, I do find sometimes having a little bit of a guide, something like that, will help get this down a little bit more. We're going to go over all of this, so I'm not too worried about any mistake lines. That's going to be good enough for me. I think there is this snowbank outside of our trees that lands there. And I am going to put in the top part of the river, which slopes slightly downwards. And then our little blob of snow that lives right up front. Just like that. Yeah. And that is the maximum of my sketching I need to do for this. We will get to all of the trees in that, but we actually don't need to sketch them in at this point. So we work background to foreground when doing any kind of landscapes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start by laying down some white in my background. It's okay if it falls forward because we're going to cover over the top of it, but you're going to want to give yourself a nice coating of white to work with for your background. I'm going to use the sharper edges of my pastel to build up the edges of my mountain. Which, if you don't have a chalk pencil or charcoal, you could totally do it that way as well by just using the edge of a stick of pastel. Really making sure I fill in that space. Now, I like to exaggerate my colors a little bit, so I want to make sure that we have a little bit of yellow in the background. And if you know me, you know I rarely work with sticks like this, so I'm going to go ahead and break it in half. This is just a warm, kind of lemony yellow, and we're just going to put it in right over the top of what we just did, maybe up here, just like this. Nothing crazy. And I think we might want to add just the tiniest bit of blue as well. So I'm just going to use the flat side of my pastel, and I'm just going to scrape it in over the top. Now with my finger, I'm going to go ahead and blend all of this together. And that's going to be the first layer of our sky. I will go back in with some white and lighten some of those areas up just because I like it to be a little bit lighter. And again, blending with my fingers. They have blending sponges out there if you don't like the texture of sanded paper. Recommend using one of those. You can also put gloves on or use a paper towel to blend with. Sometimes the paper towel though likes to take it all off. So that's going to be the base of our sky, and I'm going to go ahead and blow away all these little dust particles to give me a little bit of a cleaner spot to work. Now that we have our sky on in, I am going to go ahead and start with my mountains. Using that same blue color we used before, I'm going to go ahead and put in the top ridges of the mountains, just coming all the way up to that line we just made. So that gives us just our shape of our mountaintops. I'm going to take this blue and I'm going to start dragging it through, but I'm looking at my reference picture and I'm noticing that it's pretty light in some areas. So I'm going to start by bringing the blue in, then I'm going to stop where it starts to get light and I'm going to put white down. So that looks like this. We kind of have these hills, so I want to give them a little bit more dark blue. Now I am going to go in with my white and I'm going to add it into these light areas. And I'm also going to get it into these peaks where I see that they are actually fairly light. And I'm just going to go ahead and put the white back in. And I'm going to drag it through some of the color I've already put down. All right. Now, this isn't where we blend yet, so bear with me. What we're going to do now is we're going to start adding in some of our more rich colors into the blue. And I'm going to take this medium dark blue. It's kind of on the navy-ish side. It's not quite pure blue. And again, I'm going to break my sticks. Um, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to fill in some of those more shadowy areas, which again, I can lighten up here in a little bit. but I just want to give myself a little bit more dimension before I start blending and layering. You'll notice that's kind of the rule with pastels is it's blending and then it's layering and then it's blending and then it's layering and kind of this fun little dance we've got going on. Here, pretty dark in here. Shadow in. Now, if you want this to be a little less intensely blue, what I would do is I would take one of my browns or grays. This is kind of a gray brown color. Um, and I'm just going to bring it in to some of these areas. This is our version of paint mixing, but with pastels. Okay, I now have enough pigment down that I'm going to take my fingers again and I'm going to go ahead and blend it out, being very careful to keep like half a finger on and half a finger off for those upper edges so that they don't get too blended in, but I do want them to blend out some. We're going to just blend the dark areas first. Typically you do light first, but I am impatient. We're going to get some of these dark areas done first. And then we come to our all important paper towel. I'm going to clean my fingers off. And then if you're wearing a smock like me, I typically just dry my fingers on to my smock, or you can use another paper towel. And I just go ahead and I start blending in the light areas, focusing on the whites first. I don't want them to get too muddy. Switching fingers when I feel like I need to. All right. And then I can start blending the transitions. To get us a little bit more finessing. And again, a big strong blow, and I tap. All right, now is the time where we are actually going to start adding in some more refined details to our mountains. Now, we're not going to put in every individual tree, but I am going to start by putting in the white tops of some of these hillsides. I've got a bit of a highlight that comes down this mountain. Like that. We've got one there, which we've already got in. There's this bigger white spot here. Comes all the way down. We've got arcs this way. And again, it's just looking back and forth and tweaking. Like I said, we are not going for perfection or we're not going for photorealistic. We are going for nostalgic. I'm just going to go through and blend. Now I'm going to go ahead and add back in some of my shadows into our white zones. I'm going to put these in kind of roughly. I like to use kind of the broken edge because I want it to have that same kind of mountain texture, but I am going to still soften it up with my fingers on. Okay, so we've gotten to this point. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to blow on this again. And then I am going to go ahead and put some spray fixative down. So I'll show you how that all works. Beautiful. And now I'm going to take my spray fixative and spritz it. And you're going to see that it looks crazy. You don't want to put too much on. I tend to go a little heavy-handed for this first one, and we are going to now let this dry. Once it is dry, it'll return back to its original color. So have no fear. Like I said, the first time I used this, it scared the crap out of me. But we're going to go ahead and let this dry. Typically takes anywhere between 3 and 5 minutes. And once it is dry, I'm going to go ahead and start moving on to our next steps, which is actually going to be these trees that are in here. Um, but we'll be right back. So now that it is dry, you'll notice that some of the powder comes off, but not as much, which is going to give us more of a chance to work without it getting kind of crazy. The next thing we're going to do is the small trees in there. Now, we don't want to put in every individual tree. Best way that this works is by putting in the guessed shapes of trees. What I mean is, we're going to give the illusion of trees by creating some very specific shadows and very specific highlights. For this, I am going to use black and our dark blue. You can also use some of the darker blues. You'll see me go through a couple different colors. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to put in some scribble marks like so, where some of the trees are. I'm just going to make sure that bottom is a little bit more covered in. And then I'm going to do the same for some of the trees that are up in this area. I'm making bigger scribble marks because they're closer to us. There's also some over here as well. Not that we're going to see them too much, but I want to make sure that they're in our piece. So that's the first step to the trees is black squiggles scribbles. We're going to then go in with our darker blue color, and I am just going to go over the top of the scribbles, picking up some of that color as well, which is totally fine. Then I am going to go again over the top of these guys. With some of our scribble marks, like so. I'm going to give us some bigger shapes here. And again, really blend in this side some. Okay. Now that we're there, next step is to go with this blue, or you could go one more shade in if you wanted to. You'll notice that I struggle keeping these things organized. Sometimes I just put out a rag and bring them in that way. So this is a middler value of blue. Just want to get it in there. And again, going up one more shade of blue. Now, once we have what I deem as chaos, controlled chaos, we are going to do some blending. Now, for this, we are going to look at our hands. You can use your index finger to do a lot of this, but Again, we don't want to smudge too fast or blend too hard. I also like to use my pinky finger to help get in some of the finer ones. But for this, you're going to want to keep a hold of your wet paper towel. Just make sure that your finger is somewhat dry. And I'm just going to do little push down motions. Push down. So we're starting to get our tree shapes, but I do want to make it a little bit less black and a little bit more blue. So I'm going to take that dark blue color and I'm now going to bring it over some of my black areas to blend them together. Now that we have this, I am going to put my things back in order and I am going to grab my medium blue and I'm going to start going to clean my fingers again. And same process as before, this time making sure that I'm pulling just down. It's just going to get rid of the extra. And I'm just cleaning my finger off on my smock. But again, you can do this on a paper towel as well. You can also use a blending stump if that's something you're so inclined to. They are just rolled up pieces of newspaper. I don't like them to use them too much because I find that they take off a lot of the pastel, but each their own. We are somewhat almost finished. We've got our nice trees going on. The last thing I want to do is add back in some of that light blue again. This time bringing it down a little bit more. Cleaning my fingers as it goes. And then we're going to take some of our white. Right, now that I have this where I want it to be, I am going to go ahead and move on to our next step, which is going to be this big chunk of snow. But I'm going to avoid this area right here because this is where our trees are going to go. I only need the snow to come to about this point on. So, starting with our white again, now I'm going to put on a fair amount of white because I want this to be pretty vibrant. I am going to take our light blue and I am going to add in a little bit of a shadow line of where we've got some shadows that come across our snow. Just like that. I am going to add a tiny bit of a darker one right where the trees are. Giving that a good blend with my finger. And then we'll blend all of this out. Just like so. Not too much to do on that one. So now that we are about most of the way there in terms of this upper half, we are going to go ahead and do the bottom section. Now we've got all of these lovely trees in our picture, but we are not going to include all of them because again, we don't want to spend all of our time on this. So we're going to keep some of our big trees in, and this is where our charcoal pencil is going to come in handy. I am going to mark in a few trees just by creating a straight line. We've got a lovely bunch of trees that kind of live here. And I will get to the smaller trees in a minute. And then we have two large trees, one that comes like this, and one that comes next to it like this. And we've got two that live in the back there. So those are just our pine trees. Now, pine trees that are covered in snow are much harder in pastels than they are in our regular mediums like acrylic paints. So the way this works is we are going to put in a little bit of black and then we are going to put in some blue colors to create the idea of snowy covered ones. So I'll show you guys what I mean. We're just going to wiggle on the edge a little bit of black. Like so. Same thing over here. Now these guys are a little bigger, so they're a little darker. So I will put in a little bit more. And then we've got this guy. And in this case, I want to make sure I have a pretty sharp edge. Just gave it a fun top. Again, some solid black. And again, another sharp corner. Just kind of making a zigzag pattern all the way down. Just like that. All right. There is two more I want to put in. There is one that lives here. Now our trees look really silly, and that is what we're going for. We're going to take our dark blue and we are going to add in some scribbles, but I'm going to pick up as I go. I'm going to show you guys on this big tree really fast. Pick up pick up, pick up. I think of it as making a Z and sometimes continuing that Z and stopping it. We're going to get it nice and fat as we get down towards the bottom. Okay. And we're just going to do that with all the trees. So I'll go ahead and get those in. They're quick little pickups. They don't have to be huge drags. We're not thinking too much about it because the goal is to get them to where we want. Now, if your thing starts to get a little dirty, all you need to do is on a paper towel or on your sleeve or anything to just clean off the edges. I would just recommend not using your wet paper towel because otherwise you have to wait for it to fully dry. Next step, we are going to take our medium blue color, and we are going to add just a little bit more, but we're not going to be as precise. I'm not going to do full zigzags. I'm just going to kind of put it in here and there. Okay. Now we can go in with our lightest blue. I like to, at this point, give some swooped branches. Once you are satisfied with your trees or how they are looking at the moment, I am just going to go in and clean them up a little bit by just tapping, blurring, smudging. And those are our trees done for now. We can keep changing them and moving them and doing all that kind of fun stuff. Especially these guys, I'll probably want to. And now that we have our little kind of funky trees going, we can get the rest of our snow in now. So again, I'm going to take this dark blue and I'm going to put it at the base of our trees because this is going to be the shadow from the trees, just like so. And then I am going to go in with our medium blue. I'm going to bring in some of that shadow, make it a little lighter. And there's going to be some shadow as well right at that snow line. So I'm going to bring that guy in. And then I'm going to take my light colored, bring that out as well. It's going to give us that, oops, rich quality that we are looking for. Like that. And last but not least, you bet it, it's white. Just like that. I'm going to clean my fingers off really fast. Voila. Now we are going to put in our tiny trees next. Again, with my pastel, you can also use the edge of one of these. I'm just going to put in some twigs and things. Up here because I kind of want to leave this space open. We've got our trees in. I'm going to take my white and I'm going to just make little swirly marks, picking up my chalk every now and again. And then I'm going to take my light blue. I'm going to add in a little bit more swirls. All right. Now I'm gonna just add in some shadow again to our bank. I am going to add in white all the way down towards the bottom there. And then we're gonna take black and we are going to put in the ridge line. I'm going to do this all in one row. I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to blend. Now for the actually easier steps is we are going to do the river next. This is actually surprisingly easy. What we are going to do is we are going to start with our medium blue. I'm going to put it all the way down to the edge, just like that. Then I'm going to put in my light blue, just like that. And then of course comes the white. Just like that. Then we need to put in our trees. So I'm going to take my dark blue and I'm going to scrub in some tree shadows like so, followed by a little bit of black. And a little bit of light blue. Now, if you wanted to go this kind of green color that's in this water, I'd recommend using something like this. I don't always like to put it in because sometimes it can make it look a little out of place, but you're welcome to add a little bit of that. And now it's time to blend. Again, this time we're going to start in our light areas and work our way down the smooth texture of the water. And here I'm going to work at the line. We do need to put a little bit of a reflection over here just because you should be able to see these ones. Just like that. All right, taking our charcoal pencil, I'm going to mirror some of my lines. All right, we're going to add a little bit of white in up here to help with our illusions. Blending it in. And that's the pretty easy part. Now, I'm going to try and tap off the excess. All right, and then last but not least is to get this bottom part in. Now in here you can see that it's kind of big and snow poofy. The way that I am going to do this is I'm going to work on getting the highlights in and the shadows, and then I'll show you guys how I tackle that. We're going to leave it kind of a blank space. So I am going to put in the highlights first just so I can see where all of these are going. We've got kind of a mound here. If you don't want to do these, you are also welcome to just turn this into a snowbank. little bit of something, dimension. And then we have, last but not least, this really interesting bit of, because this is like pine there. What I like to do is I will take my white and I'm going to just drag it into the black. And then I am going to take my finger and smudge just the edges. And if you like the texture, you can leave it just as that. I'm going to go ahead and blend mine out a little bit more today. And with that, your Winter Wonderland landscape is all done. And so at that point, you can go ahead and sign your work. I am going to go ahead and take this off the board really fast. Or not off the board. I'm going to tap it forward, try and get any of that excess off. And clear up any areas I need to clear up. And then I'm going to spray fix. And I'm going to go ahead and do this in like 3 or 4 layers. I'm going to do this off screen and then I'll take the edges off and we will all be done. So here we go. The fixative has dried, the tape has been removed, and voila! Our picture is finished. Now, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and if you want to have it framed, I have 2 quick notes for you. First thing, glass likes to take chalk off of any surface. So if you want to frame it, option 1 is to frame it without glass. The only thing I'll say is be careful when dusting not to dust the surface of the picture. Option 2 is to frame it with glass, but use a very easy technique. So most picture frames come with a white border mat that's on the inside. All you have to do is flip that mat wrong side facing up, right side facing down, and pick up some scrapbooking photo squares. They should be slightly thick and foamy and double-sided. Stick those to the wrong side of the mat and then stick that to the right side of your image, making a sandwich, and then you can frame it behind glass. This protects the chalk from touching the surface of the glass, and it also keeps your mat pretty clean. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Or if you'd like to see more art education videos or stuff for my own practice, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching. Happy painting, stay warm, and I'll see you next time.